Kicking off hour number 2 with our friend Sam Mckewon from the Omaha World Herald. Sam, how are you this morning?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Sam, great to hear from you. I don't know if I can say good though because of how the Bears have been looking. I don't know about you, but I'm not feeling 22 like Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift right now. I'm feeling down in the dumps.
Yeah, so I'm married into a Browns family. So yesterday was a pretty cool day for us.
Not that cool for me, Sam, but all right.
I know. So it's pretty cool stuff for us yesterday. We get to enjoy two teams at the same time, right? So the Bears were playing at the same time. So yeah, like I mean the Bears aren't very good, and their offense is terrible, and now their quarterback's hurt, and you have to decide whether you want to kind of play for the draft pick and go ahead and get Caleb Williams or Shadur Sanders or Drake May, one of the three, I suppose, or Michael Penix if that's what you want. I don't think he's a top 10 pick, but whatever you want, or you can try to make a push for the playoffs. I really don't think the Bears are going to make the playoffs, so I think it is what it is. We'll win a couple of games along the way, I'm sure, but I'm excited about the Browns too because they have a legitimate chance to win their division and to make a run in the playoffs. They really, really do. Their defense is that good. So it was a mixed bag on Sunday for me.
Sam, do you believe in the empty threats that Caleb Williams will only play for 5 teams and 5 teams only?
I do. Yep.
So you don't think he'll end up being a Chicago Bear then? Because that team obviously wasn't on the list.
Right. I don't know. I mean, I think Caleb Williams, it depends on whether the Bears are able to get the ball moving on a stadium and, get out to the suburbs and play in the dome. I think if that happens, then the conversation will change really quickly. I don't know. Caleb Williams could probably do that if he wants to. That's kind of the way that professional sports is working. It doesn't, I don't know if it's going to fit exactly the way he wants, but there's a lot of players that think they play in the NBA now and imagine their ability to sort of shape and their trajectory. And very few players have been able to pull it off, but Caleb Williams might be able to do it. John Elway did it, and Eli Manning did it. So, and they won Super Bowls. So maybe Caleb Williams will get what he wants.
Sam, do you think Caleb Williams is aware that if he wants to be drafted number 1 overall, that he's going to go to a pretty bad franchise?
I do. Yep, I do. I think he knows that. For sure. I think
you got to get what I mean, though. Like it's not like he's going to go to a great franchise going where he's going to go, right? Like that's just not an option.
No, it's not. And again, some of the teams that he wants to play for aren't necessarily great. The Vikings are 2-4. So I don't know. I mean, we'll see. I mean, he's in a situation. The Giants are awful too, right? So he's in a situation where he's surrounded by yes people. His coach is kind of a baby, and so like he is. He's a really good mind, but he is. I mean, I'm not sure how long I'm going to do this, and the whole thing with what's going on out there. He's a great coach, but he's got a weird kind of shape your own future kind of vibe too. So we'll see what Caleb Williams decides to do, but I think eventually he's going to be in a place where they win a lot of. He's not going to the 49ers. That's dumb. So like they'll figure it out eventually, and I'm sure he'll acquiesce to to some team or another that maybe isn't the perfect fit, but I don't know why he wants to go play for the Giants. I have no idea.
That one's wild to me too.
Yeah, it's just so I think a lot of that's just based on sort of childish impulses, and that stuff will eventually go away, and he's a great player. He had a bad game on Saturday, but he's a great player, and he will be very, very good in the pros.
Sam, not much to talk about Nebraska game-wise this past weekend. We'll get into a few things with coach recruiting and the second half of their season in a hot sec. But I kind of have a two-part question here for you first. How much did this weekend's Big Ten West college football slate give you confidence no opponent on the schedule can be given the early win against Nebraska?
Yeah, I mean, I went into the weekend with confidence in that anyway. Maryland didn't change that. I mean, I have a pretty good sense of what Maryland's going to be when it rolls in here on November 11th, and it's going to be a beat-up team. That's been the MO for Maryland. Their record in November is terrible. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but they're not good in November. And you kind of saw it against Illinois. You know, Maryland is still working on the physicality piece. You know, what it takes to win, to play in the league week in and week out, and match the physical challenge. I think at least one of the teams from the West Coast 4 is going to be that way too. I don't know which one it's going to be. I think UCLA's built some toughness, but there could be something there too. So, you know, Maryland's still getting there. It's still in a lot of ways, even though it's been in the league for 9 years, feels like an ACC program. And I thought they kind of took it to the chin a little bit against Illinois. Illinois is not very good, but they're more physical than Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
And so Nebraska will have a physical advantage when Maryland comes to Lincoln. They won't have a skill advantage by any means, but they'll have a physical advantage. You know, the team that actually controls its destiny, and this is sort of goofy because they don't really control their destiny, but they technically do, is Minnesota. You know, now I think they still got to play Ohio State. So again, it's sort of silly to project it that way. But if Minnesota won out, I think they would win the West because they have all the teams left that need to be played. But presuming that Minnesota loses to Ohio State, which I think is a pretty good presumption, Nebraska controls its destiny. They control the whole thing. So if they win out and Minnesota does what everyone expects them to do, which is lose to Ohio State, Nebraska wins the West. So there's no reason for them to look at this and go, we're just trying to shuffle along. I mean, they can look at this schedule and say, if we do everything we're supposed to do and we win every single game, we're going to be in Indianapolis. And I don't think there's any particular reason for them to be afraid of anybody. That doesn't mean they're going to win every game, and it doesn't even mean they're going to win any of their games. Mm-hmm. But they don't have to be afraid of anybody they're going to play, and they'll get Iowa late in the year. We'll see what Iowa is then versus what they are at the moment. I think Iowa could lose this Saturday. I really do, in Minnesota. So there's a lot of things that could happen, and Nebraska has no reason to be afraid of going into this thing head on.
We're talking with Sam Mckewon of the Omaha World Herald. Yeah, you mentioned Iowa. Obviously, they get that, we'll call it gutty win against Wisconsin. That's the nice word for ugly, right? That is a game. Obviously, both of those teams are on the back end of Nebraska's schedule. I think a lot of people looked at Wisconsin early in the year as a game Nebraska likely loses. I don't necessarily look at it that way anymore. Did that game tell you a lot about, I guess, I mean, did this weekend tell you a lot about the Big Ten West in general? I know you kind of mentioned Minnesota and sort of Nebraska have their destiny in their hands there. But I mean, we're probably looking at like a 7-5, 8-4 Big Ten West champ, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, and there's a chance with Iowa where Iowa runs the table and they finish 11-1.
Sure.
I mean, that's possible. I would be surprised. But Iowa's got a shot to go 9-3 or 10-2. You know, if Iowa goes 9-3 and, you know, they lose a couple of more games, they may not win the Big Ten West. Still go 9-3. Mm-hmm. So that's possible for them. You know, I think there's, I don't know what the right word to say. I think Iowa is a very, very well-coached team in a lot of ways. And certainly they went up to Wisconsin and thoroughly outcoached Wisconsin. And to Luke Fickell's credit, I posted that. He must have been listening to me. I'm kidding. He said it like 4 times in the press conference.
No, I think he subscribed to your articles.
I'm telling you, it's just I think he was playing regret live in his head as his post-game press conference was going on, because, you know, at one point he said, you know, maybe we underestimated how good their defense was, or, you know, we threw the ball 8 times in a row, and you don't want to do that. They threw the ball 50 times against Iowa, 30 times with a backup. You don't do those things against Iowa in that kind of weather and wind. Washington could do that, I think, and win a game, but I don't know what Wisconsin was thinking. They weren't. I just don't think they were dialed in the way that they should have been, and it reflected in the way that they played the game. They should have won that game by 10 points, and they just, Iowa knows what they are, and they know how to, Papa Ferenc went over there and I think told his son, run the ball, at one point in the fourth quarter there, and that, I think that got it done. His son can get away from that at times because he's just trying to gain yards. And so Iowa managed the game really well, and I thought they played really well, coached really well. The way you beat Iowa is you've got to run the football, and then you've got to hit a couple of deep shots. That's just how you do it. And Wisconsin was not able to do either thing. So we'll see what Wisconsin is going forward. That's a tough team to beat up there. I don't care where you play them and when you play them. It's a tough team to beat up there, especially in November. Iowa's Iowa. You got to find a way to get turnovers off of that quarterback, and they're going to protect him really well. But you've got to find a way to make him throw into a window and get a couple interceptions. I think Purdue's got one good game left in it, and I don't know, maybe that'll come against Nebraska, just like I thought Illinois had a good game in it, and it came against Maryland. You just don't know when that game's going to come, and I think Purdue's got the pieces to beat somebody pretty good, including Nebraska. I just don't know when they're going to play that game and who it's going to come against. And then Northwestern's a wild card. Hard to know what they're going to do this week. Hard team to read. I think they play hard. That's good. And then Maryland is what you're hoping with Maryland when you play Maryland is that you're gonna get a team that's beat up and worn down so you can run the ball at them. And then Michigan State actually is very similar to Nebraska. You watch them play and you're like, there's a lot of components here that seem comparable, but they are where Nebraska was last year. Their uncertainty, there's a lot of things going on. They don't know who their head coach is going to be. And I think once they play Michigan this week and then they play another game, I think they're going to be pretty beat up too. So I think Nebraska's schedule is more than manageable, more manageable than it will be next year for sure.
Sam, is there any part of you that's like, let's get Nebraska to 7-5, but maybe we let Iowa go take the beating in Indianapolis? Because I'll be honest, maybe that's a loser mentality, but I'll be honest, I've sat here a couple times thinking, Nebraska could go to Indianapolis. Is that really what we want to see, though, against a Michigan, an Ohio State, or a Penn State? I mean, has that thought process gone through your head at all?
No, it hasn't, but I understand what you're saying. For Nebraska to make it to the Big Ten championship, which, if they won the West, they do that, they'd have at least 8 wins and maybe 9. And you're putting yourself in tremendous position for a Big Ten bowl game. And I think that's where you want to be.
Fair.
Not that there'd be anything wrong with any bowl game, right? They'll go play in the guaranteed rate game at midnight in Phoenix if they have to.
Sure.
Especially if that's a Big 12 game. That'd be great to see Nebraska play in Iowa State or something like that. But what I'll say is that, if they have a chance to go to a New Year's Day game or something like that, of course you want that. I think if I was going to handicap it, I don't think Nebraska's going to be in that position. I think somewhere along the way they're going to lose a game. They shouldn't. People maybe don't think they should. Don't think that'll happen this weekend. Although I wouldn't put this game in the automatic win column. I think they'll be around 6 wins, and they'll get that quick lane or that guaranteed rate bowl game. But a bowl game's a bowl game. They won't get any of them out of the house.
And being in that national view, that national eye can only do or work wonders for your program. We're talking with Sam Mckewon. Sam, coaches were out and about this weekend, actively revisiting with recruits during the bye week. And one possible concern coming out of Ainsworth, Carter Nelson back from a trip to Notre Dame. Marcus Freeman has shown that he's been able to swoop in and get big names out of Nebraska before. So do you think his visit should be looked at as a big issue, or are you comfortable saying he wants to stay and play for his home state team?
Evan Bland, our writer, talked to Carter's dad, and we'll have an update here shortly this morning about the visit.
That's what we call a tease.
Yeah. So people can go to our website at omaha.com and check that out. I mean, I think, what the update will say is that, you know, he's still locked in Nebraska, and he'll be at Nebraska's game on Saturday. Matt Rhule was up there on Friday night, you know, I guess signing autographs. There's, you know, obviously I think Matt Rhule was using a plane or something. So obviously Nebraska would love to keep him in the fold, and I, you know, they'll put all the effort that they have to in order to do that. You know, I understand wanting to go and take a visit and see something. Yeah, totally understand that. I think there's, you know, Nelson is certainly capable of making his own decision and needs to make that mind up. Notre Dame's quarterback is right now isn't going to be their quarterback next year. He's gone after this year. So I don't know who Notre Dame's quarterback is. I'm not sure Notre Dame knows who Notre Dame's quarterback is. So on the flip side of the coin, I think I don't know if Heinrich Haarberg's going to be, you know, all Big Ten guy, but I think everybody can look around and say, well, Heinrich's here, and, you know, he's here. So you know, this is a guy you're going to be working with. Look at the way he throws to Fedoni and all that other stuff. So I think Nebraska's got an advantage there. Obviously, Notre Dame is Notre Dame, but man, the other thing I'll say is that, you know, the way that the Big Ten is going to start setting up here really soon, you're going to play all the football teams you want to play, you know, and so I think one of the things you can say to a guy like this is, you know, next year you're going to play in the Big House, or I'm sorry, not in the Big House, in the Horseshoe, and you're going to play at USC. Now, Notre Dame's going to get a play at one, but they're not going to play at both, and they're not going to play the schedule you're going to play. And so anybody who wants to go to the NFL better well just come through the Big Ten and face this schedule, because that's going to prepare you for the next level. So I think Nebraska will be able to leverage the Big Ten as a way of saying, this is the best of the best. Notre Dame's going to play a lot of teams in the ACC. It's not going to be what Nebraska is.
Sam, I'm curious. I know you're kind of talking about some of the teams that are coming into the league next year. You mentioned the West Coast 4, and how you think some of them are maybe a little more Maryland than they are Michigan at this point in terms of the way they're set up. I was curious how you processed that Washington-Oregon game, which I thought was one of the better games just from an entertainment standpoint of the year we've seen so far. But obviously you got the undertones of both of those. I mean, both those quarterbacks are going to be gone, but both of those teams will be in the Big Ten next year. Just how did you look at that kind of with that as one of the kind of background stories?
Thought it was a great game. Felt like Oregon maybe is a little bit more athletic and physical. And, you know, if their coach trusts that his team's a better team, which I don't know that he did, I think Oregon wins the game by 6 or whatever. I think at the end of the day, you know, the coach needs to not play from like he's playing from behind. And it felt like that. It felt like it was you know, Washington was a 14-point favorite instead of a 3-point favorite. And, you know, I don't know. It just felt like Dan Lanning, yeah, we're going to play aggressive, and I get it. That's the whole Oregon mantra since Chip Kelly was there. But there's just a lot of times when you know, you don't have to play up the underdog. And I think they kind of did a little bit. And it cost them, you know, at the end when they should have taken the field goal before halftime. They should have probably taken the field goal in the second half. Probably should have trusted their defense more than, you know, hey, we're going to go get 5 yards here and win the game. But that happened. I think Washington is you know, really well positioned to be to potentially play in the college football playoff. They've got a great quarterback. They can throw the ball all over the place. I think defensively they're a little deficient, and I think they're going to run into Oregon State, and I think it's going to be tough. Or maybe they don't play Oregon State. I don't know. They may not play them in the regular season. There's really 3 teams in that league, and we don't talk about the other one as much because, you know, they're not coming here and they don't maybe have the profile that there's 4 teams in that league. They do play Oregon State on November 18th at Oregon State. So, you know, we talk about that league a lot. We probably don't mention Oregon State as much as we should, but they're really good. They're a really, really good team. And so they beat UCLA pretty handily. They lose at Washington State, hard place to play.
That's a pretty good team at Washington State, though, too.
They're pretty good. They're pretty good. It's a great league. It's ironic that in their final year, they're the best league, and they are.
And they were bad for so long, or subpar for so long, right?
Yeah, it's hard to wrap people's minds around too. You know, I understand why Georgia's still number one. That Georgia hasn't lost in a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia does not look like the best team in the country this year. Now, they may turn out to be the best team in the country because the schedule that Georgia faces and the way that the playoff is structured, Georgia will get 20-some days off before they have to play a playoff game. And Georgia in a playoff game is really tough to beat because they can out-physical their opponents, and so they'll be fresh. But, I hope the Pac-12 has a team there. I think they will have earned that. Whether or not that team is able to pull off an upset in the league's final year, I don't know. But I think Washington and Oregon, that was a great game. I don't think Washington's going to be the same team next year when they come in here. I think over time they're going to have to figure out how to run the ball. I think it's going to be very hard to throw it 55 times a game and win. But Kalen DeBoer, I think, knows that, and I think they'll make that adjustment. Oregon, I think, is Big Ten ready. I think they'll come in and
they run the ball really well.
Oh yeah, they're a good team.
They're good up front too. Yeah,
they're very good, and I'm sure that coach who I like, he's going to kick himself. There was a couple, I think, games this weekend where coaching was just, I don't really know what was going on. And certainly in the Wisconsin game, and I appreciate it. And Pickle's I think he's a stand-up guy. He was pretty honest in post-game about. But that was another game where you're just like, man, like what was Wisconsin doing? It helps you appreciate who Kirk Ferentz is, because again, you can laugh at them all you want, but man, they know how to win games, and they're really good at it. They rely on that punter. Why didn't Wisconsin go after the punter? I don't know. They were setting up returns all day long. Didn't make a lot of sense. Go after the punter. Don't let him kick the ball 65 yards. Let him kick it 43. And, you get your, okay, so Iowa's Gunners get down there, but he's not kicking at 65 yards. But they let him do it. And it's like, I don't know what you're thinking there. Like, that's the best punter in the country. He's going to be, an all-pro. What are you doing? Letting him stand back there and just bomb it, which he did like 4 or 5 times. There's just a lot of different things. I just, Wisconsin will regroup and they'll have a different plan and they'll do something different. I think they could lose this week at Illinois. I mean, you talking to me about coaching advantage. I think Illinois has got very good coaches, and I think it's personal for Brett Bielema, and he is going to try to beat the brakes off of Wisconsin this Saturday.
Sam Mckewon, Omaha World Herald. Sam, we appreciate your time, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Thanks, Sam.
Take care.
That segment was brought to you on the Warhorse Sportsbook hotlines. Later on, we'll get to the Warhorse Sportsbook sports cleanup as well.
Ooh.
Get to a bunch of stuff. It's been a busy weekend.
Rush up.
Even without a Nebraska game. So we'll have plenty to catch up on there as well. More at Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
We will be back